evening and welcome to Alan's Italy. Tonight, it is my pleasure to welcome back to the show Franc Palaia, Mr. Franc Palaia, who is going to be continuing with something he started when he was with us about a month ago, when he was talking about his Polaroid photography. So Frank is back, and we have a lot of stuff going on here. We have images, we have some things to show you about how he does his work. But actually, how I wanted to start tonight's show was the last show. One of the things I did in preparation for that show was to really read Frank's resume in great detail. And usually I'm not that interested in resumes, but this time I kind of really got into it because there are some very fascinating aspects to it. So I thought we'd start off by asking you a few of the things that really kind of struck me. And I thought I'd start with this one. Your work has appeared it has appeared in many, many different places. But the thing that struck me was it has appeared in the White House. So,
okay,
how did that happen?
The White House story, sure. Oh, this is maybe 20 years ago. A friend of mine told me that, I think this was during Reagan's administration.
Okay.
That's how far back it is. She told me that the White House was looking for artists to decorate and create Easter eggs.
Oh.
So I said, oh, okay, that sounds like something might be fun, So I contacted the White House, and they sent me 2 wooden eggs. Just like a regular egg, but just made of wood. And we were supposed to paint them and send them back to the White House, and they were going to choose the ones that they liked for their Easter egg hunt, but not the actual hunt, but a show in the White House of these artist-made decorated eggs. Not the kind that you throw in the grass and
right.
So I made a couple. I used some mixed media. I put some gold leaf on another one. I sent them in, and they were accepted, and they were in a show in the White House, which I actually didn't go to the show. I don't know why.
That was my next question.
I probably should have, but I don't know why I didn't go. Maybe we weren't even invited. I don't even remember. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so they appeared there, and then later on, I think maybe months or maybe a year later, I got a letter telling me that the eggs from the Easter egg show are going into the permanent collection of the Smithsonian Institute.
That was my next question.
So I guess the eggs are still in the Smithsonian.
Unbelievable.
Which is a wacky way to get into the Smithsonian.
Yeah, but pretty amazing.
But there.
And how about the work you have at the Metropolitan Museum of Art?
Okay, that was a little bit more substantial. A friend of mine curated a show of artist books. And books that are illuminated, kind of contemporary artist books that have gold leaf of some kind involved into it. So I was using gold leaf on a lot of other kinds of media at the time. And they accepted her show, and the show happened, and it was in the Watson Library, which doesn't exist anymore, but it's a small room years ago. This is 1984. You go into the main entrance of the Metropolitan, and there's a little room just as you go past the ticket booth, right. A little room on the left, beautiful little room with engaged pilasters and marble and so forth. Mm-hmm. Anyway, the show was in there, and it was a really terrific little show. It was, artist books, and I had 3 or 4 pieces in that show, and I'll tell you, that was exciting because, even my parents came to that one. And my parents don't always, I've had so many shows, they don't go to every show, but that one they definitely went to.
Right. Okay, that's
that was
and this and those 3 places, the White House, the Met, and the Smithsonian, is just a fraction of what's contained on this resume, which I keep reading because it's just no, it's really I find it fascinating. It's really interesting. Okay, next point, the Rome Prize Fellowship. Mm-hmm. Now, I've been thinking about that a lot lately because I'm taking a course at Bard, and my teacher did that many years ago. And somebody locally up here just won that award as well.
Oh,
Can you
really?
tell us a little about that?
Who's that person? Do you know the person's name?
I don't want to mention.
Okay, that's
I don't
all
want. I mean, I don't really want to mention
That's
names.
okay. That's okay.
I don't want to
Just
bring
wondering if I know that.
I'll tell you later.
Okay, but yeah, well, the Rome Prize is a phenomenal fellowship to get. It's probably, I think it's the best thing. It's sort of like, I don't want to. Someone else said this to me. It's like the Academy Award grants, because it's not just, oh, here's a check, that's it. It's sort of an introduction to a whole new world that is, I don't want to say exclusive, meaning esoteric or anything, but just a world of professionals and well-known people in every field who are at the top of their game. And what it is, it's an American grant. You apply for, anybody can apply for it if you're an American. And it's a private institution. It's not a school, really, even though it's called an academy, American Academy in Rome. It's a place, and it's been around for about 120 years, perhaps. The grant consists of a one-year fellowship in Rome, and you get a huge studio, 30 by 30 by 30 foot studio, which is enormous. And you get room and board, 3 meals a day, you get airfare, you get a monthly stipend, you get art supplies, you get travel opportunities. It's endless. Wow. And it's just a phenomenal thing. And for me, it was extra special because I happened to meet my wife there, and we got married in Rome, which I think we talked about the last time. Wow, what an experience! Wow. So that was sort of like an extra bonus Rome Prize.
And the academy is located
right in the most beautiful part of Rome. It's on the Janicolo Hill,
right?
Janiculum, which is one of the highest points in Rome, and it has the spectacular view of the whole Rome skyline, and you can see the Alban Mountains, in the background and so forth.
Now you have to be an artist.
No, it started in the.
Would they take a cable TV producer?
That they draw the line there. No, but it started actually for architects. It's the palazzo that this American Academy is in. It's actually the biggest academy in Rome, because Rome has more academies than any other city. I think it has about 18 different countries. It's in the because for centuries Rome was a place for artists and all kinds of creative people to go to learn pretty much everything: architecture, painting, sculpture, you name it. So that's why the academies are there, and the Americans wanted to be the biggest and the highest academy. The French had the Medici Palace, which is right next to the Piazza Popolo, and which is pretty grand also, but the Americans wanted to be bigger, higher, and better. So the building was designed by McKim, Mead, and White, and it's just a beautiful place with gardens and.
The Medici Palace, is that the one kind of north of the Piazza?
It's up on the high hill. The church, the Trinita, above the Spanish Steps. You go make a left and walk a little bit. You'll reach the Villa Medici. So anyway, so this beautiful academy. It's a magnificent building, and it was really created for architects, because the American architects knew that to be a really fully rounded architect, you have to study the classics. You can't just stay in America, because we didn't really have much history with architecture except for the Dutch, or something, or the longhouses from the Native Americans.
Roman history goes back 2,000 years.
Right. So Rome has every kind of architecture you can think of. So they wanted the American architects to go to Rome and study the classics, so they made this academy. So for many years it was just for architects. Then they added sculptors, because obviously sculpture is a major part of Rome. Then they added painters. Then they added writers and art historians, landscape architects, musicians. So now it's about several categories.
Right.
But
Yeah.
roughly they accept about 30 Americans in those different fields.
Mm-hmm.
And you go there and you spend a year, and it's the most wonderful year in your
imagine.
life. And it's just incredible. And then once you're in Rome, it's easy to travel to Europe and North Africa or wherever you
So
want to go.
was Eve also
Well, Eve,
one of the ones accepted?
yeah, she actually got a 2-year Rome Prize, which is
Oh.
really special because you're really only supposed to get one. To this day, I don't know how she got 2, and it was consecutive.
Wow.
So yeah, she's really good in her field.
And this was after she had become an art historian. This was after she was out of school.
Yeah, this is after graduate school, and she was working on her dissertation.
And she started to become well known.
Well, not quite then. I mean, she was only in her 20s, But what happened was she actually got 2 grants the same year. She got the Cress Foundation, which is also pretty good, but you don't get any living facilities. So she actually had to reject. I'm sorry, not a Cress, Fulbright. Fulbright. Can you imagine getting a Fulbright and a Rome Prize?
Gee.
So she picked Rome Prize because you get to live in this palazzo, So she was there the year before me, and then luckily she had the second year, and that was the year I came. Or else if she had a 1 year, we would have never met. Well, probably at one of the functions, but would have been a little different story probably.
So you had this great experience of being in this
environment.
Mm-hmm. You also met your future wife,
Yeah.
and you got married on the Campidoglio.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say that everything's pretty downhill from there.
Yes.
Right? Anyway,
Well,
let's move on because we're starting to.
Yeah. Okay.
And the next thing, of course, we're going to focus on is you brought some. Well, actually, you brought this beautiful piece right behind us. That's what everybody is kind of focusing on now.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, you brought some of your materials to show us how it's done. So, again, I'll leave it to you.
Okay. So in the early 80s, I started, in the 70s, I started using SX70 Polaroid because it was a brand new kind of film. It was very exciting, a lot of fun using it. So about 10 years after I started using Polaroid, not all the Polaroids were coming out so beautiful because it's a very sensitive film. It needs a lot of light, bright sunlight for it to be exposed properly, and it needs to be warm, above 55 degrees, because they tell you in the package, if you're shooting in the cold weather, after the film comes out of the camera, put it in, under your armpit to keep it warm so it can develop properly. So at certain times, it's not sunny and it's not warm, so you have these kind of lackluster, gray, boring, dull Polaroids. And then after you accumulate a bunch of them, you figure, well, gee, what am I going to do with these? So, I'm a resourceful guy. Artists are very creative and resourceful. So I thought, and I'm a painter, so I thought, well, why don't I paint the Polaroid? So I went through a lot of different materials, but the paint and so forth didn't stick really to the surface because it has a plastic acetate face, and it's very slippery and slick, and the paint comes off. So I thought, well, what's sticky and has color? And I thought of oil-based crayons. So I discovered this really wonderful brand called Carandash. It comes in this really nice tin and lots of colors. What's nice about them is that you can just color them like a pencil, and you can blend, and you can create beautiful texture and blended areas, and the color is very rich and intense. And I started playing around with that, and they were coming out very interesting. And I found out about a Polaroid sponsorship that if you show Polaroid what you do with their film, if they like what you're doing with it, they will encourage you by giving you lots of film. They don't give you money, they give you film and cameras. So they liked what I was doing. They said, gee, no one's ever done this before, which I was surprised because to me it seemed like a natural. So anyway, years go by and I get boxes and boxes of film, and so I have literally thousands of Polaroids, color Polaroids, and I've done them all with this one kit. I've had this for 30 something years.
Really? Don't
Yeah.
they?
And they don't wear out. Look, they're
Wow.
still big. They break, but they last forever, which is
Wow.
really terrific. So, these Polaroids, I mean, they started out as kind of a little small little series, but they've grown over the years because I keep coming up with different ways of using them and presenting them. And every series is sort of a whole new can of worms, so to speak, and they bloom into a whole nother series. So they started out as regular Polaroids, and then they go to the hand-colored Polaroids, like the one on the screen right now, Coleone. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
You want to get into that?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. So, this is Coleone, and it's well. Let's tell a little bit about him. First of all, this is the actual Coleone by Verrocchio, and that's the church that it's in front of. And this is the story. Coleone was a condottiere, and he was a mercenary who was born in Bergamo, got to pronounce these correctly, and worked for the Sforza family in Milan. And then he went to Venice and did some wonderful things for the Venetians in terms of leading their army. And he accumulated a tremendous amount of money, and he left it to the people of Venice for the purpose of creating a monument to him, an equestrian statue of him. And his request was that this statue should be put in the Piazza San Marco. But when he died, they decided that they weren't going to put the monument in the Piazza San Marco, so they decided to put it in front of another church, in front of the church of San Giovanni Paolo, and there he remains. So that's the story of Coleone, and there's your...
Yeah, there's my version of him. And now I understand Verrocchio was Leonardo's teacher.
Right.
So it has that kind of, you can see the horse has that same regal pose as the famous Da Vinci horse, the same stance, and has that thick body, you know, that strong, muscular look. But it's a really beautiful little piazza here because you have this little piazza, you have this grand sculpture and a beautiful church in the background. On the left is a very large canal, and there's a cafe. I think I shot this from the cafe, and it's just a very pleasant. You know, it's intimate. It's not too big. It's not crowded.
No, I was going to ask you that this is an offbeat kind of place in Venice. This is not the kind of place in Venice where tourists go, and even people who try not to be tourists like myself, where I like to go to places that are a little offbeat. That's why we stay in the Dorsoduro area. But this is, I won't say an obscure piazza because it's not probably a campo, because there's only one piazza in Venice, and that's the Piazza San Marco.
Campo, yeah.
But did you go here with the purpose in mind of photographing this, or did you just happen to?
You know, I think my wife knew about this sculpture, and we sort of gravitated toward it. I mean, it wasn't on our to-do lists so much, but because it is, you know, it's kind of a known location, but it's a sort of it's conveniently located close to other things that you would normally look at as a tourist. But what I particularly like, this is one of my favorites actually, because I was a little bold. You see that bright red building on the right-hand side,
yes,
which is totally out of character. I mean, you would never see a building that red. And then I used that kind of salmon pink color for the pedestal or stand of the sculpture, and then that yellow for the church behind, and then that deep blue sky. I like the fact that each section has a distinctive color, and normally they wouldn't work together, but for some reason in this particular photograph, I think those colors work well together, and in a way, they are almost as important as the actual sculpture. In fact, the sculpture is just sort of, and normally you wouldn't put a sculpture in the middle of a photograph. You know, everyone says, oh, that's bad composition. But because I highlighted and enhanced the surrounding area around the sculpture, it takes the attention away of the fact that the horse is right in the middle. So anyway, that's my explanation.
That's a beauty. And that's, of course, a very famous. Now, we come to Hadrian's Villa.
Yes.
And before you begin describing that, I just wanted to show the viewers what Hadrian's Villa is. So Hadrian's Villa is located in close proximity to the town of Tivoli, which is located, I would say, about 15 or 20 minutes northeast of Rome.
Right.
And it's I took a few notes, so let me just read what I had.
Sure.
Hadrian was a Roman emperor, and he did not like having his villa or his palazzo on the Palatine Hill, which is where the emperors kind of stayed. He wanted to build his out of town, kind of in the suburbs, so to speak. So he built a magnificent villa, and this is what a reproduction of the villa looked like. And this is only part of it, because the thing encompasses 250 acres and 30 buildings. And he used it as a retreat at first, and then as time went on, he liked it so much because it had everything. It had a stadium, it had baths, it had theaters. It was just a wonderful place, obviously, to be. And he had a full staff of people, and he decided that he wanted to run the empire from this location, as opposed to, kind of commuting between Rome and and Tivoli. I don't know if Tivoli actually was called Tivoli at the time, but he wanted this to be where he did that. So
Right. Yeah,
he governed from there. This is not a good picture because it's from the internet, but this will be pertinent in what we have to show you in a few minutes. And let's go back to the original.
Right.
Go ahead.
So yes, it's a lovely place. It really is a beautiful place. A man-made lake, of course, there, and all that classical sculpture all around it. And it's just far enough outside of Rome that it's pleasant. It's like the countryside, but yet it's not a long, full-day trip to get there. So it's kind of popular, very touristy, but it's expected, and I didn't mind that so much. But I just was attracted to this sculpture's beautifully shaped figure, male figure, and the fact that it didn't have a head almost made it better, because you could sort of focus more on the muscular structure of the sculpture. The head doesn't. Who needs the head anyway? And then these columns kind of just made a beautiful frame. And because the Polaroid is a square format, I thought that the columns and the frame of the image, again, the sculpture is right in the middle. Usually that's not what you do with photography, but for some reason it seemed right. And then, of course, when I hit it with the oil crayons, I went wild, and that yellow sky is totally unrealistic, but somehow the contrast of the yellow and then those earthy kind of salmon pinks of the marble seemed to balance out, and the cool blue water, turquoise water, just seemed like a nice combination.
With the shading, the different shading within the water, it's
I
really beautiful.
I usually go with the flow, so to speak. I try to work with what's there, and I either exaggerate it or sometimes I diminish it. It depends on the image. And I have quite a few from the villa.
Yeah, I have a few more. Let me just show what we have here.
Yeah, that one is another nice one. It's columns that are actually figures, and there were potted urns and plants on top of the heads there. They're no longer there. But I've loved the sky in this one.
I was just about to say, the sky is gorgeous.
It's like a abstract painting in a way, and it recreates that beautiful. This might have been a kind of a grayish Polaroid, because I think the day I was there wasn't that sunny, and so I was yearning to see the sun, on Hadrian's villa. So I recreated the sun by using that yellow on the sculpture, and the light, bright clouds. It kind of gives it a feeling of a warm, sunny day, even though it might not have been. And actually,
you can pretty much create the sky you want, right?
That's what's great about art. You can make. I think Woody Allen says that the art is. What's great about art is that you can make anything perfect that nature or wouldn't, or something like that. I don't know the exact wording, but that's what makes art great, is you can make it perfect.
Okay, and I think we have this one as
right.
well.
That's the same
from the back.
Sculpture from the back. Again, a really kind of wild sky and beautiful sunlight on the shoulders of the sculpture. Yeah. And then also I also like the deep dark black shadows too. Gives it a really nice contrast to the color. Gives it a graphic feel.
Right, okay, and here's yet another one. This is really a great one.
That's similar to the photo you had earlier, with the circular row of a colonnade around the lake. And
now this is an extensive site, but most of the photographs, if you Google Hadrian's Villa, just for the images, they always show you the images of this pool.
Yeah.
So this is really an evocative spot. And I can see that you took advantage of it.
It's iconic of the villa, the actual building is nice, but it didn't, it's not that distinctive or different or unusual to your typical Roman villa. But this, you don't see this every day. It's a little beautiful lake, little man-made lake, pond really, with the colonnade around with all the sculpture. It's just a nice, very nice setting.
Again, another beautiful sky. Okay.
And the umbrella trees.
Let's go back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which are cut that way, by the way. They don't grow that way.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Now the next image. This is the Vatican, and that's a chimney in the Vatican. I'm gonna just tell the viewers what we discussed earlier, and that is that I got this picture because I wanted to discuss this is the Vatican Museum.
Yes.
And the Vatican and the grounds of the Vatican are all around it, mostly to the left. And I thought I would tell the story before of this. And we're not sure if this smokestack is the same as this one. This is the smokestack in which, when a pope dies, and the only way for a pope to lose his position, of course, is when he dies. I never heard of a pope who resigned, so we can only assume that the only way to, for a pope the change of a pope is when he dies. When the pope dies, the College of Cardinals takes over, and their responsibility is to elect a new pope. And they meet in the Sistine Chapel, and it's a closed session, so they have no idea. People have no idea what's going on inside. And the only indication they have is they focus on the smokestack. And what the smoke is that if no pope is selected, then they take the ballots and they burn them. And they mix it in with, they mix it in with straw, and they create the black smoke. And when people look at it and they see black smoke, they know that no pope has been selected.
Right.
But if white smoke comes out of the smokestack, they know that that's the moment that the pope was selected, and they will announce the new pope. So that's the purpose of the smokestack that I thought this one was. So
yeah, it's kind of a secretive procedure like the Supreme Court. They go into their chambers, and except we don't have smokestacks telling us what the new law is.
We have
going
no
to be.
idea until the final.
Right. But even though I named this a Vatican chimney because obviously there's a chimney there, but I really don't think it's the same chimney. First of all, this chimney is made of stone, and the Pope chimney is a small kind of metal pipe type of chimney with wires holding it down. So that's
my bad.
Not good try, but no cigar. But what I found interesting about this view, and first of all, I called it Vatican chimney because if you were to look at this building, I would say that nobody would ever know that that's the Vatican.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't know that either. And then with my coloration, totally distorting the coloration, adding so many new colors, that it makes it even more difficult to figure out what it is. So that's why I made sure that the Vatican was in the title.
This is certainly an unorthodox view of the Vatican.
Yes, it's actually kind of a back view. It's sort of right off the street with busy traffic, and it's not. It's actually the edge of Vatican City. In other words, you're kind of entering Vatican City.
I see.
So it's sort of like the back of a building.
Nowhere near the Sistine?
It's close. It's maybe a 3-minute walk.
Because here's
It's a 3-minute
the Sistine.
walk.
Let me just use my pointer here. I hate to do that because this thing pops up, but this is where the Sistine Chapel is, like right over here.
Right.
This is where you enter the Vatican. On the other end, you go through these long hallways
Hall of Maps.
with the Hall of Maps and the Hall of Tapestries, and you come up here, which are the Raphael rooms,
Right.
the Stanza de Raphael, which were Julius II's private apartments. And then as you go down here, you come to the Sistine Chapel, which is right here. So
Right.
so I guess that's
So it's just an odd view of the Vatican, and I just thought it was kind of almost an abstract kind of, And I think this is also near Vatican City. Pretty sure, but not 100% sure. I just like the geometric shapes and the voluminous forms and the contrast of the warm colors on the left with the orange and the yellow, and then the cool greens and blues on the right, and that pink sky. It just sort of makes the whole thing pop.
Yes, your blending of colors is really extraordinary.
Thanks. Yeah, I have fun doing
And
that.
this is the next one,
Okay.
which is again. Let me do my last bit of thing because this is the last one that I was able to recognize of the Italy photographs. So let me just mention that this is the Cathedral of Monreale, which is located just outside the town of Palermo in the northwestern part of Sicily. I've never been to Sicily, but I was 2 weeks from taking a trip to Sicily, and the trip had to be canceled because of a flight problem. So I know Sicily pretty well, and this is Norman architecture from 1174, and this is one of the iconic scenes. Where we go. I should have shown this. This is another poor image taken from the internet of Monreale in Sicily, and okay, let's go back to this.
Okay, so that one you just passed is the tower you saw in your photo.
So we'll come back to it.
Now this is the. And this brings me to the next stage of the Polaroids. As I said before, Polaroid Corporation sent me tons of film. I never could even use it all. It was so much. And I had it sitting in my studio for decades, and long past their expiration date. But I figured, well, let me throw it in the camera and let me try it anyway. So I threw some packs in there, and what happened was so many years went by that the chemicals in the film, which is actually in the lower part of the Polaroid film. If you notice, a brand new Polaroid photograph is a little puffy down here, like a little pillow. And what's in there is the chemical. And when the film is exposed, there's two rollers, and it squeezes the chemical in the little packet down here across the surface, and that's what develops the film into a photograph. That little pocket of chemicals down here. But anyway, now I have tons of outdated film that's all dried up. So I used it anyway, and what happened was that wherever the chemical was dry, there was no image. So I tried it, and I thought, gee, these are just failures. So I started playing with the film. I was curious to see what the film looked like inside. I cut the frame off and literally peeled the back from the front of the Polaroid, and what's left is the acetate face with some of the chemical, the developing chemical on the back. Some is just clear plastic because it peeled off. And then you have these pock marks where the film didn't connect with the acetate. And I even brought a flashlight. I don't know if you could see this.
Can you get this on film?
But you can actually
Alan?
see the little clear parts of the acetate where the chemical flaked off, and creates a really interesting haphazard pattern. I call it a planned accident, because I kind of knew after a while what was going to happen. And then what I did was, when I got these strange distorted and ghostly colors and so forth, I started hand coloring these. So that brought it to a whole nother level, and it gives it sort of it's just a really intense, as you can see,
Yeah.
that dark shadow silhouette of the cathedral, and then that bright yellow and the blue and the palm tree. It just has a very graphic look, and it started a whole nother series of Polaroids using the old outdated film, and I call them the desiccated Polaroid series.
Right.
Because
I
it's
remember you
dried,
discussing
it's
that.
dried film or deconstructed Polaroids, whichever you prefer. But so that's a continuation. Again, these Polaroids just keep changing and transforming into something new and different, and it's a really exciting and fun surprise when these kinds of things happen.
Do you still create new ones?
I still have
You still
some
do
old
that?
film. I don't have that
I
much
see
left.
you have a whole book of them.
Yeah, well, these are from a few years ago,
Yeah,
but
Let
because
me
I've been
move on to
doing
the
these,
next
I've been
one.
doing these several years
Oops.
already. Yeah.
Okay, so this was the next one.
Yeah, that's one of the towers of that cathedral, and then that I think was not a desiccated Polaroid. It was fairly intact, and I still colored it pretty much completely over the whole thing. And
Now, what inspires you to do a sky the way you do? Like, what inspires you to use yellow, for example, or pink, which is very unusual for a sky? I mean, you don't see skies.
Yeah, well, you get tired of the blue and the white, sky blue. So I was trying to. Sometimes I play off of a flaw that's in the film. Sometimes there is a little tinge of yellow there. So rather than trying to hide the yellow, I actually exaggerate it, and it brings it to a whole nother level again.
Right. Okay, and I think that's another view of Monreale.
Yeah, it's quite
What's
big.
the deal with that other tower there? Is that like a damaged tower? You familiar
I
with
believe
that?
so. I don't know the detail of the history, but it looks like, that it was damaged.
Okay. And how,
Okay, now I like towers for some reason. I don't know why. They just seem to be.
I know we got some more coming up in the future.
They seem to stand out. Obviously, they're the tallest thing in the town. But this is in Edice, Sicily, which is a small town all the way to the west.
I know what Edice is. It's
Yes.
it's on the coast.
Yes.
On the west
It's
coast.
almost as far west as you can go. I think Trapani is maybe a little bit
Yes.
further out, and they say that you can actually see Tunisia from this area here on a clear day, because Tunisia is only maybe 50 miles away.
In the plan we had to travel around Sicily for 10 days, one of the towns we were staying in was Edice.
Right. And this is just a little tower there, and it's just, again, this is that old desiccated film, although it wasn't as bad or as old as some of the others, so there's not much of a color distortion there, but I left the tower pretty much as it is and then just colored the sky.
Have you ever done a Polaroid of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, since you like towers?
I think
Seems
I
like
do,
you'd have fun with that
but
one.
you know what? They didn't come out so well.
Really?
You know why? Because the Leaning Tower of Pisa is such an ornate kind of tower.
Oh, yes.
And when you color it, you kind of ruin that beautiful, intricate pattern and design. It kind of mushes it all. It kind of ruins it.
Right.
So I tried a couple and it didn't work. So, but But what I like about these kinds of towers is that they're not that ornate, which is good because I don't have to fight with the ornate quality and imagery. I can just play with the planes. Let's see the planes, just those two sides, the dark side and the light side. It just accentuates that beautiful form, that three-dimensional form of the tower, which is what I like. And I have that, and you can see it in a lot of my photographs, not just Polaroids, but in my other photographs. I wanted to be an architect when I was young. I never actually went that route. So rather than designing buildings, I like to photograph buildings, and color buildings, and then I even used to make frescoes. So I would actually kind of recreate fake walls and structures. So I kind of beat around the bush, so to speak, as
are all these very popular? Is this a very popular form of your art among people in general?
The Polaroids?
I know, I love them.
Yeah, because I think I'm the only guy that's doing this kind of thing.
I've never heard of this.
Yeah, and
I mean, you must have done some research
in all the years I've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of photographs in Polaroids. I have to be honest, I've never seen this technique, and it's not that I mean, it's out there. These crayons are available to anybody.
Sure.
But for some reason, I guess I got the credit for it because Polaroid noticed the uniqueness of them and really supported me for a few years.
Have they responded in any way? I mean, to the Polaroid? Is Polaroid still in existence?
Well, actually, let's see. About 4 years ago, right before Polaroid disintegrated as a company, as a corporation, they had a show of Polaroids, and I was selected out of thousands in their collection. Maybe 10 photographers. I was one of 10, and it was a group show in Soho that Polaroid had organized. So it was nice to be in that.
That must have been great.
The competition with Polaroid is beyond comprehension.
So people do other things with Polaroids as well?
Oh yeah, I mean it's endless. Polaroid is really just it's like a whole world unto itself, because it's such a unique format that once you kind of clamp onto it, it becomes its own entity in a way. And there are some artists just use Polaroid and they're famous just for their Polaroids, but and that's fine, that's great. But so right before Polaroid disintegrated, unfortunately we went out of business. Digital photography put it out of business because now we don't need a Polaroid photograph to see an instant image. We have it on our cameras. So they totally folded, and then they sold their whole collection, which was tens of thousands of phenomenal photographs, and mine were in there. I had about 6 or 8 in their collection. No, about 10 Polaroids in their collection, because the deal was you would give them photographs, and then they would give you film.
Right.
So their collection was phenomenal. And
you must have one of the biggest collections of film.
Of their film?
Yeah.
Of Polaroid
stuff
film?
they sent you.
I have boxes and boxes of it, yeah.
Okay, so this is one of my favorites.
Yes.
And
unfortunately,
take
I
over.
don't remember where this is. That tower is
well,
the best.
This is in Florence.
Definitely Tuscany, yeah. And I like it because it has a kind of an awkward, unusual composition, where you have the 3 planes kind of playing off each other. You have the foreground with that big urn, the middle ground with that yellow church, and then the background with the tower. And even though they're kind of incongruous and kind of oddly positioned in the photograph, somehow it works as a photograph. And then I specifically changed the palette, the color palette of each plane, each object, to kind of differentiate, to accentuate the difference of those 3 planes. That's why I used the 3 different colors. And then you have the sky, of course.
Well, here's a blue sky. It's nice to see a blue sky again.
Well, the blue is a contrast to the warm yellow, the warm pink, and the warm red. So you have this contrasting blue, and that kind of balances it out. You have the warm and the cool.
This is stunning. I think this is one of my 5 favorites, and I've been to, as you know, I won't say I'm an expert on Florence, but I would say that I know Florence very well. and I have no idea where this is.
Yes, I don't know.
And I
think
Googled it,
you know.
urn with tower behind it, and urn, outside church, nothing.
I mean, usually I write where the image is on the back of the photograph, but this one has been in a frame for a while, and I didn't want to rip it apart to see the back of the
As
photograph.
long as it's Italy, it fits
It
the
doesn't
show.
really matter.
This is a great.
It doesn't matter, yeah.
If I ever enhance my collection of
Okay.
this is number 2 coming up.
Mhm.
Speaking of urns,
Yeah, this is I like this one because it's just such a simple composition. Again, an object right in the middle, but somehow it works because it's almost a quintessential Italian kind of image. And in fact, this is across the street from the American Academy. In fact, it's on there. They have this little park across the street, and this is in their park. And that's quite a big urn. That's about, you don't get a sense of the scale, but that's about 8 feet high. Yeah, and I'm standing kind of right next to it. And of course, there's the umbrella tree in the background there. And there's a lot of hand coloring on that. Usually, foliage is difficult for the hand coloring because it sort of mushes up the detail of the leaves and so forth. But sometimes it doesn't matter, and you don't really need to see that. I left a little bit of the green there on the left, but it just was a kind of it just has that warm, lazy, wonderful summer day in Rome, feel.
right?
And okay, now this is a really interesting little church. It's the tiniest little church you ever saw, and it's symmetrical. It's the same on all sides. And this side happened to be facing the sun, and that's why I photographed it. Like I said, you need a lot of sunlight to have a good Polaroid photograph. And just by coincidence, this side was the most interesting because of the texture. The arches, they kind of, that are not really arches, they've been filled in. And then I went just wild with the color, and it just seemed to work. The lavenders, the pinks, the blues, the lime greens, the yellow. It just, I don't know. It's to me, it's like an abstract painting because I'm a painter, and I approach photography as a painter. I mean, I pay attention to the image, of course, but then when I hand color it, I switch. It's like a switch. It turns on, and then I'm a painter, not thinking so much as a photographer.
Right.
And I want it to work as a painting almost.
Well, we have some photographic images coming up in the next several weeks and months. So, okay, I wanted to get to this, and we're running out of time a little bit. So.
Yeah, this is an odd structure right across the street from the American Academy, and I call it De Chirico Wall because it reminds me of a De Chirico painting with his inaccurate and kind of awkward, distorted perspective. But this is a building that sort of starts out as a wall, and then it becomes a building, kind of a strange triangular building. But the sides have a different kind of perspective because the ground is different. You look at the windows on the right-hand side; they kind of sink into the ground, and they don't relate to the actual pathway there. And the left side is a different kind of perspective, more traditional, more standard looking, and it sort of could be a bow of a ship, It could be. It's just a strange structure.
For some reason, this reminds me a little of the Flatiron Building.
Yeah, and it has a
in
little bit of that too, of course, right.
So that was a beautiful piece, and I don't know where this
Now
is.
this, and I didn't know it at the time, this is a very famous little church. It's near Quitico d'Orcia, a beautiful part of Tuscany. And
our show was just
it's-
there last week. We did that area of Tuscany.
Oh, right. And it's, I didn't realize it, but it's been photographed a million times, from every possible angle. And because I have a lot of books on photography and a lot of them on Tuscany. And this church is in every single book, sometimes 3 or 4 times. It's just, there's something about it. It's a quaint, cute, and it's kind of forlorn because it's empty and there's not much around it. It's just beautiful countryside. There's rolling hills, and those cypress trees kind of, it's sort of, the church is sort of hugged by these little cypress trees.
Yes.
It's sort of protected. And it's just a sweet, quaint little setting, and it's
Now,
just very nice.
would you like to talk about this
Sure.
a little bit before, because we really have to kind of move
I
on.
wanted to bring this in to show the viewers what I do as the next step with the Polaroids is to blow them up to this size, which is 3 by 3 feet. And if you look at it, again, it looks, this is a hand-colored Polaroid, and it looks like a painting almost, in scale and in texture. And the image is actually a detail of the front entrance of the Brooklyn Library. And it's actually a gilded figure here. There's lots of gilded figures that go all around the entrance. Really beautiful, magnificent entranceway. And I wanted to just show you that you can blow these little small 3 by 3 inch photographs into these big, nice, pretty good size images, and still they keep their integrity. You know, the texture is there, the color is still rich. Of course, the Polaroids are scanned, I scan them at 300 DPI, so you can get to a pretty big size without losing any pixelation. And then I go a step further from this. I go to 4 by 4 feet, and I make them into light boxes, which is another show.
Right. We'll be talking
So
about that
maybe I can
in the
bring
near
one
future,
of those in.
hopefully.
So
Okay.
that's
Okay, so how we doing time-wise here? I mean, we have millions of...
about 5 minutes.
30 seconds.
Speaking of the American Academy, that's actually a little part of the American Academy. That's taken from their beautiful gardens in the back, which has olive trees and a little pergola, and it has even has a bamboo garden. It has a vegetable garden where we eat the produce that they grow on the premises there. It's really
what a
wonderful.
great experience.
There's a little shed in the back that's one of the artist studios, which is right next to the walls that defended the city from invaders. Some of them were used by Garibaldi, the walls, because there are these thick walls with little holes in them, so they could shoot through the holes in the walls. It's a very interesting part of Rome. It's a really nice part of Rome because it's high up, it's cooler, it's not as hot as the lower part of Rome, and the air is clearer, brighter, and it's just cooler. You get the breeze, and the air seems fresher. You're not smelling the pollution from the cars that are far below.
Well, I think we'll stop here, and I'd just like to tell the audience. First, I'd like to tell you thank you very much.
You're welcome, Alan.
And Frank is going to be one of my regular companions, whether anybody likes it or not. This is going to be it, because Frank is coming back to do a series of shows on his photography of Pompeii and Paestum, which is a Greek site in Italy. Aqueducts coming up as well. So let me just say thank you again to Frank, and thanks to the audience for watching, and we'll see you next week. Buonanotte e buona fortuna.